What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the Off the Bench podcast network. Welcome into another episode of the Changeup here as we talk Major League Baseball. We get 1 week closer to the season, and I can't do it by myself. I am honored, always have a lot of fun working with Bryanna Winner. You can find her on Twitter at bwinner12. Going to be helping me out today. As always, Bryanna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I mean, a lot of movement this week with trades, free agency, and obviously a lot of other news that have come down in the last few days.
Yeah, it's, last week, I think in terms of signings and trades, I think of the offseason was probably the busiest, the most impactful, with the big money really kind of being thrown around. Now, obviously, there is still that, I guess, white whale, if you want to call him that, Trevor Bauer. I don't think it's any surprise that we are in the early parts of February and we are still waiting on Mr. Bauer. I expected him to milk this as long as possible, and hey, that's his right. He worked his tail off this season to be the top free agent, or at least the top starting pitching option. But this week's episode, obviously, plenty to get to. And the big news of the week, it's really, I would say, the second blockbuster trade in the last 3 weeks, and it's going to be
Controversial.
yeah. Oh my god! I mean, this is unbelievable. We'll get to it here, but yeah, Nolan Arenado being sent to the St. Louis Cardinals. Obviously, a lot of talk about would he stay in Colorado. That didn't happen. So Nolan Arenado and $50 million being sent to the Cardinals. Bryanna, I'm gonna let you take the lead on this one. I got plenty of thoughts myself, but I'm gonna let you start us off here.
Well, I think Arenado is just tired of not winning anything, like especially in the West, which is already hard enough. At least with the Central, he's got more of a chance now that the Cubs are basically going downhill. But I mean, oh, do I know some Rocky fans that are really mad at the management here because you just got rid of your franchise player and $50 million for what? Some prospects and draft picks? What's that going to do for you this season? Obviously, I feel like he hasn't been wanting to stay in Colorado for a few years now. He's just been waiting for the opportunity to get traded, and here you go. But I mean, don't send $50 million with him. Like, you're screwing yourselves over at this point.
Yeah, it would be one thing. I understand that the climate, the financial climate of some teams. If the Cardinals send three of their top five prospects, and the Rockies give them, I mean, maybe even not $50 million. $50 million is the most. It is more than the Rockies have ever spent on a free agent. I mean, that tells you, or a free agent class. Okay, that they literally are paying a team to take their best player and getting. I mean, look, peanuts is that's an insult to peanuts. This is essentially highway robbery. This is, I know it's a bit of a salary dump, but can you call it a salary dump when you throw $50 million behind him?
Probably not, but I know the
No.
person that does like the social media for the Rockies, and I sent you some of her tweets along with the Rockies tweets, and you understand how she felt. And I'm like, I don't understand this trade whatsoever, and neither does she. And she works for the organization.
Well, and as a Padre fan, I'll be the first one to admit this is kind of what the Padres have done, but it doesn't get to a point where the Rockies signed him. The Rockies signed him to an extension. Now, did he want to be there or not? That's another question. After they signed him, they started to taper off. With Lindor, it's
Well,
different.
and
Yeah,
LeMahieu left.
yeah,
LeMahieu went to the
exactly.
Yankees, and I think that was a part of it. Blackman's no longer
Definitely.
there. Like, I
Definitely.
watched these guys in my time in Colorado, so I know how Arenado plays. Like, he's Golden Glove winner for a reason. And I
Yeah.
guess the Cardinals wanted him, but the one thing I really don't understand about this trade is the $50 million. That's the one thing I don't understand about this trade.
Well, I think it's pretty much obvious
To
that the
pay off the
Cardinals.
contract.
Yeah, exactly. And it's to it's to obviously alleviate. Now, a lot of this apparently is going to be deferred. This did, I believe, officially go
A few
through
hours ago.
today. Yeah,
Yes.
so there
I
were,
saw the tweet saying the deal is done with a crying face.
yeah, it was, we had talked about it. Myself and Coach Lupian had talked about, there were some hurdles they had to get through on Saturday, and obviously they've gotten through them. But for the Rockies, they now are where the Indians are in terms of where do they go from here. Their fan base is now in complete disarray. They have nothing to look forward to. Now all eyes have to switch to Trevor Story. I mean, how can Trevor Story look around and get fired up for this year? Um,
I mean,
it's
from what I saw, they're thinking they're going to keep him for the year, but we don't know what's going to
yeah,
happen by the end of the season.
you kind of have to.
He's going to be gone by the end of the season if they don't pick up some.
You have to do something,
suspects.
because it's similar to what's going on with Bieber in Cleveland. Do you want to hold on to these guys and waste their opportunities, or do you just want to blow the damn thing up and maybe Trevor Story can get some prospects in? I'm not sure. It's a disaster in Colorado, and it's not too long ago. This was a team that was winning wild cards, or at least making it to wild card games. Not so much, unfortunately, these days, and I don't think it will happen anytime soon. So we shall see on that. Moving on to the next bit of business. Obviously, Dustin Pedroia. Really, really tough to see Dustin Pedroia announce his retirement. I don't know if it was tough. I think we all kind of expected it. It had been a little while since he had been into something. He would have been, in my mind, a Hall of Famer had he stayed healthy. That wasn't the case the last 3 or 4 years. His body started to break down, and I think it finally caught up to him. I don't see him being a Hall of Famer, at least in terms of the baseball writers. Maybe the Veterans Committee can bring him in, but I don't think that diminishes what Dustin Pedroia means to the city of Boston and really to baseball. He was the ultimate little guy. There's a lot of, it's kind of like if you wanted to see what a David Eckstein personality in a borderline baseball player, with all due respect to David Eckstein, that's not a baseball player's body. But Dustin Pedroia was that. He was the 5'8" little guy who was able to go out, and I'm sure he's a little bit bigger than that, but you understand. It's tough to see him go, but at the same time, I think this is a guy who, one way or another, he's going to stick in baseball. I don't know. His temperament might be a little much for the managerial role, but I could see him, maybe in broadcasting or something like that. I know he's a fiery guy, very competitive. But Dustin Pedroia announcing his retirement. Thoughts, Bryanna?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you saw him as like a manager or like in the front office. Because I can probably see him doing both. Obviously, he's not as chill as David Ross, but he's got the experience. He's got the mentorship that he can bring to the younger players. Obviously, yes, he's a hothead sometimes, but I mean, yeah, like you said, he's probably going to stay in baseball. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer at some point, whether it's from the beginning of his career. Obviously, you said the end of it was just injury ridden, but I mean, that's not something you can control. I mean, we still haven't seen Ohtani really pitch a game because of Tommy John surgery. So I think it's just really going to depend on what he does next. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree. I think wherever he goes, I believe he will succeed, or maybe not succeed. He will definitely give everything he has. That's just the type of competitor he was, and the guy he was. But for Pedroia, off into the sunset of baseball, if you will. Moving on to some news that I guess broke last night to yesterday, but also kind of news that I feel like has crossed my radar before. I wasn't able to actually verify it, but Mickey Callaway, is he, Bryanna, the bench coach or pitching coach?
Pitching.
pitching coach
Pitching.
for the moment for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. It is a bit interesting to know because obviously he was a manager with the Mets. These allegations, from what I've seen, come from five different females that have come into contact with Callaway, either through media or any just passing in baseball.
It's all been media. They've all been
Okay,
reporters.
fair enough. Gotcha.
We're all reporters at one point.
And some of these things, I mean, one of the instances I saw, just kind of the thrusting of the midsection. It's bad stuff, and it's also something that has probably been going on for quite some time. The news has come out now. As of now, it is February 2nd, 12:40 on Pacific time. I believe in the next 24 to 48 hours, unless something crazy comes down, I expect that Mickey Callaway will be giving his walking orders. And this is an investigation has been opened. The Angels have already come out with a statement saying they are taking everything seriously. It would be very, very hard for me to fathom that there are five different people not telling the truth, five different people fabricating lies, essentially. We shall see, but I believe much in the way of the former general manager of the Mets. Now, I think in that there was actually more concrete proof in terms of text messages, things like that. But anyways, I think the way the gauntlet has been kind of thrown down, this is not something that is going to be messed with and needs to be cleaned up very, very soon. Bryanna, thoughts? Obviously,
well, I mean,
this hits home more ways than one.
Yeah, more ways than one. But I mean, we talked about Jared Porter a few weeks ago. Obviously, he's being accused of sending inappropriate messages and photos. So there is going to be proof, whether it's on these girls' phones or if it's on his phone, whether he was smart enough to delete it or not. I don't think he's that smart. But I mean, like you said, pitching coach for the Angels, which I think might help in the Bauer case a little bit because Callaway and Bauer, when they were both with the Indians, did not get along. So maybe if Callaway gets fired, there's a bigger chance for Bauer to come to LA. But I mean, obviously the Angels are going to take it seriously after everything they've had to deal with in the last few years with the Eric K situation, with a bunch of other front office stuff. So this is just another scandal that they have to deal with, but I think they're taking the right approach. Obviously, MLB is conducting an investigation. I think the Angels are as well. I'm not quite sure on that one, but yeah, I saw it first through tweets. So I had seen like a little blurb from female reporters about it before it even hit ESPN on my phone. So that's how I saw it, and that's when I told you. And then like about 30 minutes later is when the ESPN notification came in. But I mean, this is just becoming all too common, and it kind of needs to stop. So support women in sports, and I am part of that group. So please support women in sports because I want to do this. I would like to not have to deal with this in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's not part of it. I don't think it ever was. It was, but I don't think it is now, and it never had a place. But in this day and age for the team and the league, I don't know if there's another way. I can't find any way out of this for Mickey Callahan. I mean, in this situation, it's almost at this point, I'm going to go there and say, I don't think he's man enough to do it because obviously he hasn't manned up in a little while. But you need to fall on your sword here. You need to be the bigger person and resign in disgrace. You need to go up there, apologize, own up to it.
I think he's going to get fired before that.
Oh, 100%. And exactly.
And I think that might happen in the obviously, I think that might happen in the next few hours.
Oh yeah, that's why I kind of time-stamped.
I'm pretty sure this investigation is going to go very quickly. Yeah. And he's not going to get a chance to man up. No. So, and then he'll never work in baseball again.
Well, we're knocking on wood on that one. I'll tell you that right now. We can't. But yeah, that's why I do believe, it might even be a situation where he's getting his ducks in a row, but I don't think he survives the next 24 hours in any capacity with the Angels. And this really obviously is not the main concern, but I am going to bring it up. This is a baseball podcast. This adds further kind of complications to the Angels because now, once again, it's not the first and foremost, but the Angels struggle with the pitching on the pitching side of the ball. And I know, okay, that might open things up for Trevor Bauer to come to Anaheim. I think it's a little late in the game for that, but anything could help.
He hasn't decided yet. You
You're
don't
right,
know.
100%. You are correct. If there's, as long as the bell hasn't rung, it's still going. I hear that. But in terms of for the Angels, assuming that this doesn't bring in Trevor Bauer, it does get a little tough because, you know, you do lose a pitching coach. He's been in the league for a long time. So, you know, obviously sounds like a garbage human being and a less of a man.
Like Porter.
And yeah, 100%. And if that is the case, then he needs to be out of baseball indefinitely, forever, for good. Absolutely no doubt about it. But the Angels will need to fill in that block. I'm sure that's another reason. I hate to say it, but it is a little bit of CYA right now. Cover your, you know, and figure out who's going to step into that role. I think you have to have a name before you get him out of there.
Well, if you think about it, though, they have somebody already on staff that they could also do that with. And he is the manager. Because if I recall, he was the pitching coach for the Angels a long time ago. So he could do both jobs until they find somebody. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think they'd rather have Joe Madden do it at this point.
I think I would personally believe, I would say, you know, even if you got to bring in your AAA and AA pitching coaches or somebody up there, at least to have just another person in there to keep an eye on things. I don't know if Joe Madden could do both of those. Now, if anybody can, don't get me wrong, it's 100% Joe Madden, but just an extra set of eyes. We see a lot more so on the pitching, on the hitting side, where you see hitting coaches. I don't think I've ever seen, at least maybe in title, pitching coaches. Maybe I know we've seen pitching coordinators, things like that, blah, blah, blah. But it is really the furthest thing that should be thought about when figuring out what to do with Mickey Callaway. He did the crime. Okay. Once again, I just want to, we assume he did the crime. And it's
sure he did the crime.
Yes, 100. And yes, I would say 98% yes, but we still do need to kind of just wait for everything to roll out. But yes, 98% in that boat. And if that is the case, then it is time for him to, you know, pay the piper. And I don't want to say right off into the sunset. I would say disappear into nothingness is more likely.
Disappear to the underworld.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But moving on to something that's, I guess, a little more, well, it's definitely a lot better to talk about. And it's Major League Baseball, well, at least the Players Union kind of, I don't want to say forcing Major League Baseball's hand, but pretty much telling Major League Baseball, get your stuff together and get ready to play a 162 game season. As earlier this week, or I'm sorry, maybe earlier last week, Major League Baseball tried to come up with a plan of, you know, we're going to play 154 games. We're going to start 2-3 weeks later, you know, late April, and play only an extra week. We'll do universal DH, you know, little things like that. Major League Baseball Players Union decided, you know, nope, not going to happen. So it does seem it's full steam ahead with a 162 game season, with plans to start camps opening up on February 17th. That would mean 2 weeks from tomorrow, 15 days from when we record today. That is fantastic news, but it is still with the thought of, you know, what is it going to be like? How's it going to look? Will we get through it? Obviously, going from 60 games last year to 162 back to normal is a dream for baseball fans. Can it get done is another question. 15 days away from bringing players in and expanded players as well. If major league teams get their way, they're going to bring in 50 players. That's just how spring training is. How do you deal with that? Now, the states like Arizona have already asked for a delay. I haven't heard anything from Florida. Florida is a little different in terms of the how they've been handling everything. So how does that break into it? A lot of questions are asked, and I assume, going to get answers in 15 days, or at least start to figure out something. But at the end of the day, if you're a baseball fan, 162 game season, sooner rather than later, is music to your ears. All the extra stuff aside. Bryanna, your thoughts?
Look, I would much rather have no ITB than a shortened season. Like, I don't care what you do as long as there's no ITB. That's my opinion because I hate international tiebreaker with a passion, and I have for years, and you have heard me say it a lot that I hate it. I hate it, and I hate it on both sides of the ball because I've been in the situation where I was the runner and the catcher. So fun. I mean, I know a lot of players are wanting to go back, but at this point, COVID is kind of ruining everything. It wouldn't surprise me if they delayed at least by like a week or two just to make sure everything's okay because of what happened last season with obviously during the 60 games, what happened with like the Marlins, the Phillies, specifically the Cardinals. So I think they're just trying to get a plan of action for everywhere. So I obviously think that if they delay it like a week or two, it should be fine. Either way, they would finish in the month of October. So
Yeah.
I really don't think it would matter.
And I'll be the first one to admit, I don't know if 154 games versus 162 does, I mean,
It's not much of a difference.
no, right? I mean, we're talking about trimming off less than 1/16 of a percent. I mean, it's like, okay, it's almost a little bit like some of these, certain situations. I read a thing about a Super Bowl party. Oh, they don't, the CDC doesn't want you to have a Super Bowl party where you cheer or have alcohol. So what if you just sit in the corner quietly sober? COVID just ignores you. Anyways, it's just, it doesn't make a ton of sense how 162 is a problem, but 154 will be just fine. I think at the end of the day, you aim for 162. You start rolling. And I think last year, baseball was so handcuffed with those teams you brought up. Because it was only 60 games, they felt, okay, we have to get these teams to 60 games. I think if you aim for 162, look, if some teams play 162, and you know what, some teams played 156 because they had something happen and they tried to do the best they could, or they play 154, something like that. I don't think it's the end of the world if you have to somehow do a 1-game tiebreak. I don't know how you figure it out, but I think we have to get to a point where we get a full baseball season in. 60 games, with all due respect, was not a full baseball season. I do honestly believe the best baseball team won. It pains me to say it. I wish I could sit here and say that the Dodgers didn't deserve it or it's a half championship. And to my Dodgers fans,
if the race kept Snell they would have been the one that deserved it.
You are correct. You are correct. And then a whole nother can of worms would have been opened up after the Justin Turner saga, but that was what MLB avoided in that thing. But with those situations, how do you, as a baseball fan, kind of see 60 games and enjoy that? I mean, we enjoyed it, but it was not that was pretty much spring training as far as we're concerned. And then now we get all the way up to 162. I don't think anybody will be heartbroken if, hey, we only got 150 in or 140 in, whatever. It's still 120% more than we got last year. A lot of this right now, I think, needs to be fluid. You can communicate with teams that, hey, these are some of the options that we're going to think about if something happens. But you can't just decide, we're just going to shut this team down for 10 days and then give them 10 double headers later on in the year when you're playing 162 games, period. You just can't do it. I don't care if you do ITB. I don't care if these guys are playing at video games to figure it out. You just can't do it. But at the end of the day, however we get the most amount of baseball, that's what we're here for. It's what I'm on board for. And I do believe that even if you get only 140 games in, we will know who the better teams are. Moving on to...
Well, going off that for a second. Yes. And a lot of teams tend to do better after the All-Star break, which there wasn't one last year. Nope. I mean, we can say that for the Washington Nationals when they won 2 years ago. So, I mean, in that case, a lot of teams need the All-Star break.
A lot of players will tell you They don't get comfortable
until they
for 60, 70 games into the year. That's why you play 162. It's a feel. It's a different situation. It's a lot of fun though to kind of. It was fun for last year. We got it, and compared to what we couldn't have gotten. I mean, we could have gone a whole year without baseball. It was kind of fun to see that kind of, sprint and stuff like that. But I don't think we ever want to see that again for more reasons than one, believe me. But we shall see. I know ITB is something Bryanna wants to put
eradicate
forever, and all forms of baseball, softball, slosh ball, any any game that you need to put in there. But we will move on to some great news. Bryanna, I'm going to pass it over to you because my gardeners have begun outside my window. I'm going to go shut my window. Why don't you give us a rundown of what's going on in Milwaukee?
I thank you, because this one's going to be fun for me. Okay, so I know we talked about a few different scenarios in the last few weeks, but the Brewers have named former University of Oregon softball player Sarah Goodrum as their minor league hitting coordinator, and she's become the first woman to hold that position for any MLB organization. And obviously, she was with the Milwaukee team already with the Sports Science and Integrative Sports Performance Lab since 2017, so she's already got a feel for Major League Baseball. But in this case, she's actually another coach, which we've seen a lot of in the last few weeks. So bravo to her.
Amen. And I think it's fantastic to see that. Obviously, kind of, to be honest, when I was kind of putting the rundown together, I wasn't quite sure. I wanted to keep the trades and free agents together and kind of the other news together, but I did.
Well, to be fair, we needed this after.
Yes, exactly, and that's my point. I didn't know where. I was like, you know what, we'll just throw the 162 games in just to kind of break it up. But I wanted this to be kind of towards the not behind that, but something to think about and at least have a positive thought when you are thinking about this, because we are seeing more and more. I mean, I believe it started, to be honest, it started a long time ago with people that I don't even know and fathom, and that's my fault, and that's on me. But for me, it dawned on me, or at least came to my purview with Jessica Mendoza getting such a massive role. Yeah, and
I love her.
and even going back to I don't know what capacity, but Jenny Finch back in the day, and it was a little different because
she's awesome in person.
Yes, and she's a fantastic baseball mind, softball mind. I mean, you can bring them into the baseball, and I learned so much obviously from Jessica Mendoza, and there are others that their names slip my mind. Jessica Mendoza is just, essentially at that top. And
well, the rest are still in regards to softball. That's why, because they're either like college coaches or just anywhere else.
And to be fair, look,
I was the only one a part of Major League Baseball at any capacity. That was an Olympian.
And to be fair, I don't even know the Padres hitting coordinator, anything like that. So there are other, this is a situation. This is awesome. We had Bianca, was that
Smith?
Thank you. Gulf Coast League. Forget the team, but she is going to be the manager there. And now we're seeing this situation with minor league hitting coordinator almost. I don't want to diminish anything, Bianca, but this is, you're a coordinator of a group of hundreds, or at least 100, to keep all these guys together. And I think one of the best quotes I've seen is, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. I don't know who is the one freezing.
No worries. Little technical. But for the females coming into this sport, the best quote I've heard from the women coming through the ranks or being hired is that their willingness, or the willingness of the players to learn. If you can bring something to these guys' attention, hey, your pivot or this or that, whatever it may be, they are willing to listen. Sorry,
Alyssa Nakin.
Yeah,
with the Giants. Obviously, there was a whole thing that happened with her and a former Giant, but
there's going to be some bad seeds in every pile, unfortunately. But
he I think overall, is just one that should never play again.
Yeah. I think overall, you're seeing the opportunities of females in sports, and a lot of it is the willingness of the players, whether you want to admit it or not. A team isn't going to hire anyone that the team won't get behind, period. I don't care what year it is, where we are. That's just not going to happen. They'll deny it. They'll say but no, this is a business. So showing the ability that these players finally, or at least I'll say 90 to 95% of these players are willing to learn no matter who that person is. We're obviously seeing it in football as well, and really all sports. We're seeing it with Becky Hammon in the NBA. I believe she actually started I believe Popovich might have been out of game, so she was technically the head coach. But we're seeing it in all sports. And with all due respect to the hockey realm, I don't know. I know it's happening. I don't know anyone off the top of my head, but it's great to see. And I believe it's only a matter of time before we see a woman manager, a female in the dugout in any capacity at the major league level. And I cannot wait for that time. I know Bryanna is, who knows? It might be Bryanna. We might honestly, you might be looking at Bryanna. Who knows? She has she played her time in softball, and
I think they'd prefer somebody that played college though, which I didn't.
Hey, it's opening up doors though. You never know that it's opening up doors into any capacity. And I mean, don't get me wrong. If I have to do this show by myself, that no one's going to be here, but I'm still going to be pushing along. But it's opening doors for all walks of life, or at least all doors opening in Major League Baseball or baseball in general. Moving on to some of the signings. Yes, let's get into some of the signings. The first one is really another reliever falls off the board, and it's Sean Doolittle. He will head to the Cincinnati Reds. This was a one-year deal. We don't have any money yet. I'm sure it will be coming out here soon, but he will head to the Reds. Obviously, the Reds, he's not going to fill Trevor Bauer's shoes, and it's not fully figured out that he's out in Cincinnati, but it probably is. But this is a steady arm. You can put at the back end of that rotation. I believe it was earlier this year that, was it the Angels who picked up Raisel Iglesias? Or maybe I picked I believe they had traded away some bullpen.
I think it was the Angels.
Okay, yes. So they had traded some bullpen arms away, and they bring in Sean Doolittle. Obviously, when you're coming up on February, this is time. You kind of have to get yourself signed up here. Pitchers and catchers.
Tell that to Bauer.
Exactly. Well, I think Bauer is one of those guys. He can kind of do the Machado, Harper. I remember Machado and Harper. I don't think they signed until like a week into spring training. Sean Doolittle, not exactly on Trevor Bauer's level, but Sean Doolittle heads to Cincinnati, adds some bullpen depth.
I mean, at this point, a lot of teams are just looking for bullpen pitching. I think they've got everything else basically covered, but a lot of teams have been struggling with pitching, especially because of last season. So, like, David Price hasn't played in over a year, so we don't know how he's going to be when he comes back. Same thing with Michael Kopech. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm saying his name wrong. He didn't pitch for over a year because of COVID. So we don't know what pitching status is looking like for most teams at this point. Well, White Sox don't need any more help.
Exactly.
Neither do you. Still salty.
It will be Didi Gregorius up next. He stays with the Philadelphia Phillies. He signs a 2-year, $28 million deal. Didi Gregorius, he's an above average shortstop. I think the Phillies are banking on the fact that just everyone's going to be better. They haven't really brought anybody in of too much value. I mean, they brought some guys in here and there. Obviously, they kept Real Muto. I understand that. That's huge for them. And obviously keeping Gregorius, that's good for them. But those guys were all on the Phillies last year, and 60 games, 140, 154, 162. I don't think either of us can see the Phillies being a playoff team. I mean, they weren't even.
But again, You won't know until the All-Star break. I mean, the Nationals sucked in
Well,
like 2018, 2019. And then once the All-Star break hit,
I don't believe that in the division and the way the East is setting itself up, that an all-star run is in the books this year, to be honest. When the Nationals did their thing, a lot of that too was some of those other teams being young and inexperienced and kind of coming back into the fold. If there will be expanded playoffs, 8 teams in each league make the playoffs, 100%. I'm all on board on who can kind of ride that wave in. But in that division, when you're going to be playing that many division games late, especially in September, those last 15, it seems like you're only playing divisional games. Are they able to, obviously, look, if you're playing hot baseball, fantastic, but we're going to be dealing with, maybe if the Mets pick up Bauer, you might go in a 3-game stretch where you're going up with Bauer, DeGrom, and Syndergaard, and you got to win 2 of those 3 games. That's tough, but for the Phillies, they're at least bringing pieces back. And at the end of the day, if these guys go out and they end up winning the East, I don't think it would be a huge surprise, because all of these players have played at a certain level. It hasn't happened in a little while. Bryce Harper, I'm looking at you, but yeah.
Going back to Mickey Callaway for a
Oh,
second.
there we go. Do we have some breaking news?
The Angels suspend pitching coach Mickey Callaway in wake of the Athletic report on his mistreatment of women reporters. So at least he's suspended for the time being, but he's not going to be anywhere near players. He's not going to be anywhere near the team. I think in the next few, maybe in the next day or 2, he will get fired, but at least a suspension is somewhere.
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of fully expected the Band-Aid to be ripped off. But that will probably,
I think they have to finish the investigation first before they can do that.
Yeah, well, for me, if that's the case, when the investigation starts, that's when I believe the suspensions should have started. But it is what it is. Mickey Callaway now suspended, 1 step closer to the plank, if you will. Moving on from Didi and Mickey Callaway, it's Eddie Rosario heading to Cleveland. This is it, Indians fans. The answer to your Lindor problems. It is Eddie Rosario. I only kid halfly, only because he is essentially
the Indians
replacement.
And Indians are just not going to do well. I mean, going back to their logo, what do you think they're going to change their mascot to?
I think it's got to be the spiders. I don't know if it has to be the spiders. I know there are a good amount of options out there. I like the spiders. I like the history of baseball, and the 1899 Cleveland Spiders are, I believe they went like 20-40 or something, or 20-140. I mean, just the worst. I don't know. Obviously, as a baseball team, as an organization, you don't want to bring light to how bad they were, but I mean, come on, who was alive in 1899? I think that would be cool. Obviously, after this year, it's going to be changed. There are plenty of options. Who knows? Who knows? But Eddie Rosario will be, at least this year, will be a part of the Indians. The last year of the nickname of Indians, Eddie Rosario. Look, you just kind of got to shrug. If you're an Indians fan, you have to just kind of wonder, if you're a Cleveland fan, how you kind of keep rolling through all this. You just keep watching the replays of LeBron James winning a title, 5 or 6 years ago, whenever that was. Maybe watch Baker Mayfield against the Steelers on repeat. But yeah,
watch the Indians in the World Series in 2016.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, I don't know how much you can enjoy that. Maybe you turn the game off.
I'll enjoy it.
Well, yes, but Indian fans, I guess you maybe turn the game off after, or turn the recording off after they tie it, or whatever that was. But Eddie Rosario heads to the Indians, and one that's going to hit close home to you, Bryanna. This is interesting to me. 1 year, $7 million for Jock Peterson. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he wants to play. That's evident. So he doesn't care where he goes, even if it is with the Cubs. I mean, with the Dodgers in general, a lot of their players have been getting pushed out into the side, like Kike, who's now the Red Sox. Same thing with Jock. He basically lost his outfield position when Mookie Betts came in, and he wasn't playing as much. He wasn't hit in the lineup as much. So I think he just wanted to go to a place where he knows he would be able to play at least most of the time, because he knows, obviously everybody knows how much the Cubs are like struggling right now. They're about to start their rebuild once they get rid of a lot of the rest of the core 2016 teams players aside from hopefully Rizzo. Leave Rizzo there. Let him finish his career there. He started there. Let him stay. So I mean, it's not really anything special for me. It's just players want to go where they know they're going to play.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because I would have paid a lot more for Jock Peterson. I'll tell you that right now. I think Jock Peterson is a upgrade from Kyle Schwarber. I think they are a bit of the same player, kind of that lefty bat, but I think Jock Peterson has more athleticism. I think
going on along with that, Schwarber was the bat, not really outfield, whereas Peterson, I think, is going to be more fielding than bat.
I think Jock Peterson's bat is. I would rather have Jock Peterson's bat than Kyle Schwarber. I'm a big contact guy. Kyle Schwarber is going to go up. He's feast or famine, and there's a place for that. Don't get me wrong. But he's going to go out there. He's either going to put a charge into one or probably put a charge into the air and go walking back with the strikeout, which once again is fine. But for the way I believe the Cubs need to construct things, I think Jock Peterson is the better fit. And at 1 year, what was it? 8 million? 7 million? I mean,
to be fair, a lot of the 1 years are going to be 7 or 8 million.
Yeah, but if you're going to sit here and tell me that Eddie Rosario signs 1 year, 8 million, and Jock Peterson signs 1 year, 7 million, I would take that all day if I'm the Cubs. With all due respect to Eddie Rosario, Jock Peterson, I think, is undervalued. There's a lot of talk about whether or not he can hit left-handed pitching. That's just something all left-handed hitters have to deal with. But I like what else he brings to the table. Moving on to as one player comes into Bryanna's team, another leaves one of Bryanna's teams. It is Andrelton Simmons heading to Minnesota. This is a 1 year, 10.5 million. Bryanna, thoughts on losing a shortstop?
I mean, to be fair, we lost Tommy Listell in the middle of the season, so this compares to nothing because we've already lost most of our shortstops, but we still have Fletcher, so we've got that. But I mean, he was injured towards the beginning of the season. He was out for a good month or two with like the high ankle sprain or whatever it was. I don't remember. It had to do with the ankle. But I mean, again, is a case where he wants to be, where these players want to be somewhere where obviously they're going to get paid to play and they know they're going to be in the lineup. Whereas with Simmons, you never know if it was going to be Fletcher at shortstop or Simmons at shortstop. Most of the time it was going to be Fletcher until he got injured.
Yeah, I think this is a steal for the Twins. I would have gone a lot higher on Andrelton Simmons, and that's just because of what he does with the glove. He's the best shortstop I've seen defensively since Omar Vizquel, and he might be better than Omar Vizquel. In all honesty, he has gone up there. He's gonna hit 240, 250 for you. On the Angels, that's not the end of the world, because they have so many other bats. But I think with the Twins, it's a perfect fit because the Twins have monsters in that lineup. Andrelton Simmons can settle into that 8 spot and play great defense, hit 240. If he runs into 5 or 10 home runs, if he drives in 40 or 50, I think this gives the Twins a whole nother element. And essentially, this is turning into an arms race in the American League Central between the White Sox and Twins. Everyone else is pretty much fighting for the first overall pick.
Well, again, Simmons, obviously, when Rendon came in, wasn't going to see much shortstop because they had to move Fletcher somewhere. So, and you knew it was going to be in the infield no matter what you did. So even if you were fighting for the spot, it was going to be until La Stella left, La Stella, Fletcher, Rendon, and then whoever they chose to be at first.
Well, and that's how the Angels have to deal with it. And they're, like I said, none of those guys could hold Simmons' jockstrap defensively.
Fletcher?
Oh, Andrelton Simmons is, like I said, it's not even close. I like Fletcher. I think Fletcher can be a good bat, but Andrelton Simmons, what he does in the field defensively, it's not even close. He could hit 150 for me, and I'd still put him in the lineup, assuming I had other bats. And that's what I kind of say with the Twins is you can hide him at the bottom of the lineup, let him be a defensive cog in that machine. And I think he's going to fit in much better there with the Twins. And I think like I said, this is an arms race. It's going to be the Twins or the White Sox. There is no option C in the American League Central, folks. No chance anyone sneaks their way into that.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the Twins have the fielding, but the White Sox have the pitching.
I like the Twins pitching as well. I think they can.
So with everything that the White Sox got this offseason,
I think it's going to be a great battle. I don't think it's just cut and dry, though, that it's the White Sox division because of that.
No, I know.
Staff. I still look.
No, I know. I'm just saying it's going to be
definitely
versus fielding between those two, and bats are going to have nothing to do with it. If you
I think the best lineup in baseball right now is still out in Minnesota. The most power. I don't think it's even close. Minnesota can go 1 through 9 with pretty much anybody in baseball, but. Moving on to some trade, or at least a trade. Steven Matz heads from the Mets to the Toronto Blue Jays. This is, for all intents and purposes, from what most people believe, a salary dump to clear out an extra $5 million for the Mets to go get Trevor Bauer. He's the odds-on favorite to go to the Mets now. Most people believe that that will be the case. Ironically, the Blue Jays for a while were, I believe, the third pick according to the odds to go. So don't expect the Blue Jays.
Where did the Angels land?
The Angels are not on the top 5 at the moment.
Oh, that sucks. But
the Dodgers,
fan bases, Angels are 1.
Sorry,
but the fan bases and everything from Bauer's YouTube has been Angels. So you know, might be coming home.
I know the Momentum channel would love to tell you that the fans are making the decision, and he will tell you that that's the case, but it's the money that will be put on the table, and I just believe the Mets are going to be able to do that. The Padres were number 5. I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
You don't need any more pitching.
Oh, sure we do. Always.
No, you don't.
Always.
Neither do the Blue Jays at this point. Blue Jays need no more now.
Need more pitching. We'll always agree to disagree on that one.
Well, the Blue Jays are just stacked now in that East, so they need to stop.
Yeah, I see, and that's where we disagree. I don't think you ever stop. I think if the possibility is teams. Hold on, please. If you never want to have enough bullets, period. At the end of the day, you want to be able to look at somebody and go, yeah, I'm sorry we could only pitch you 50 innings this year, or you had to be in the bullpen. It sucks. You might hate me, but you know what? We probably did really well. And at the end of the day, if someone does get hurt, you do have those bullets ready to roll. So I don't think you ever stop. Now, would it be smart? That's another question. Monetary, probably not the case, but I do think Matz to the Blue Jays. I think for the Mets, they obviously clear up some cap space, or at least some money. And they also kind of, I guess, eliminate a team in the Bauer sweepstakes by bringing in by sending him to Toronto. I will say, I'm sure most of you have heard about the last week or two with the Wall Street and the GameStop situation. There's some rumors that Steve Cohen and his group took a bit of a hit with the GameStop. So that's another story for another day, but who knows if that could also maybe affect the Trevor Bauer situation, if the ownership group might not have the amount of money that they possibly thought they would have. Would be rather ironic that some Redditors did that. But Steven Matz to the Blue Jays. Any final thoughts on that one before we head up to AJ Preller?
Well, I'm going to leave that one to you. You don't have to even come to me on that one. But, I mean, the Blue Jays have too many weapons now. At least leave some for the other teams, specifically in the West, to fend off the Dodgers.
Hey,
The Padres, come
everybody had
on.
those chances to go get them. They're all signing up, and it is turning into that arms race that I do think you are seeing in all sports. But yes, AJ Preller has been given an extension through 2026 by the San Diego Padres. It's a big, big vote of confidence for the team, and why not? Obviously, this is the best, most exciting team the Padres have ever had. Coming off the heels of yesterday's news of, for the first time since 1997, a San Diego Padre will grace the cover of a video game. It's going to be Fernando Tatis Jr. He's the youngest player ever to do that. And it's rather fitting. This is a guy who is kind of the face of the youth of baseball right now. Obviously, the bat flips, the swing on 3-0. He's kind of the the opposite of the unwritten rules. That's Fernando Tatis Jr. But for AJ Preller, he not only gets an extension, he gets a promotion as well, president of baseball operations and general manager as well. So look, for the Padres, the future is bright where you can bring all these players in. You look at some of these guys that have been brought in this offseason between Snell and Darvish and Musgrove, and you still have the most amount of top 150 prospects in baseball. Depending on where you look, MLB has in third or fourth. But anyways, Baseball America likes them with still the most prospects. You have to feel good about what AJ Preller has done, and you have to feel good if you're a Padre fan about what has finally transpired when the ownership group or a ownership group is given the general manager the option to spend money. It's the one thing the Padres have almost never had, was a ownership group willing to spend money. That is not the case. So AJ Preller, a well-deserved extension and promotion, but now it's what can you do in this next 4 years, this next 5-year cycle. And look, Jace Tingler is a very close confidant to AJ Preller, so they're pretty much attached to the hip. Their success is going to determine what happens going forward. So moving on to the final bit of the news or of our show today, it is our weekly player profile. We are starting to, or we have continued to highlight and spotlight players of the Negro Leagues that were never, ever properly, and even with us doing it here, we haven't properly honored them or anything like that. But next up, we got through some really cool stories. Last week's story was really cool with Tony Stone. Obviously, look, we didn't want to have to talk about Hank Aaron passing, but it was a bit of kind of, hey, that's kind of cool that we're able to talk about Tony Stone, who was, not only a female in baseball playing, but she also took over for Hank Aaron in, I believe it was the Indianapolis Clowns, without my notes right in front of me. But that's just really cool. But this week it is Buck Leonard. He was born September 8th, 1907 in Rock Mount, North Carolina. He would live to be 90 years old. Stayed in Rock Mount. That's where he would pass. But in between that time, honestly considered maybe the best first baseman ever in the Negro Leagues. Himself and Josh Gibson, a player that we've actually was our first spotlight. Him and Josh Gibson were teammates on the Homestead Grays, pretty much a dynasty, the New York Yankees of the Negro Leagues, if you will. They won 9 consecutive Negro National League championships. They also won 3 Negro World Series, Negro League World Series, and he was also selected to start in the East-West All-Star Game 11 times, which, fun fact about the East-West All-Star Game, which is, of course, the Negro League All-Star Game, would almost always outdraw the Major League White All-Star Game. So that just kind of shows you. And this is also a guy who played on Satchel Paige's Negro League All-Stars that played in exhibition games against the major leaguers. He actually hit 382 in those games. So Buck Leonard, a guy that not only was great in the Negro Leagues with the Homestead Grays and Josh Gibson, but also when given those opportunities to play against the major leaguers I guess it's still segregated, but in ability to be able to play against each other, he was actually better than his 341 career mark. He actually hit 382 in those all-star exhibition games, which weren't really exhibition games. They were only called exhibition in name because, they didn't count for anything, but those guys were going to play every single time. But Buck Leonard is our player prospect or player profile. Bryanna, anything else you would like to add?
I mean, 320 batting average, 527 slugging percentage. I mean, I know a lot of players struggle to even get to that point now. I mean, like you said, 3-time World Series champ. He was a 13-time All-Star. He was inducted in 2 different Hall of Fames, the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972 and the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame in 1974. Something I found was a lot of people compare Josh Gibson to Babe Ruth on that team. And then Buck Leonard was compared to Lou Gehrig. So they were called the Thunder Twins, and he was basically the Black Lou Gehrig. He got the Washington Nationals Ring of Honor in 2010. He's one of, I believe, 5 or 6 from the Homestead Grays to get this honor. He was the subject of a North Carolina General Assembly proclamation not long before he died, and recognizing his contributions to baseball. And obviously, like you said, he died at the age of 90 due to complications of an earlier stroke that he suffered in 1980. So,
yeah,
I mean, I wish he would have lived to 100.
I think when you get to that point, or
101, because then he would have been part of the special draft.
Yeah, he probably I don't quite know the names on there, but he probably would have gone number 1, or at least actually no. Now that we think about it, I remember going through there. I think it was more regional based than anything. I don't think it was an actual, but anyways, yes, he would have been a part of that. But obviously it was great for him to at least have been honored before he passed, to get that, obviously that fantastic accommodation, but also to be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. I mean, that's 1972. That's pretty much the beginning of getting the Negro League players into the Hall of Fame. Another interesting thing, you don't see this too often, but he actually outplayed the Negro National League, or the Negro Leagues. The Negro Leagues actually ended up disbanding. He ended up continuing to play. He went down to go play in Mexico, played in the Mexican League, played until he was 47 years old. Kind of gives you a bit of a look into why he was able to live to the ripe age of 90. I'm sure he was probably still kicking towards his later days. But Buck Leonard, like I said, considered arguably one of the best first basemen ever, and one of the top 20 Negro League players ever, a part of the dynasty that was the Homestead Grays. And once again, I implore everyone, if you want to learn more, my goodness, there's so many options out there. Obviously, all you have to do is just a Google search and you'll go down a rabbit hole. But Ken Burns' baseball is a fantastic outlet into that. There's a certain episode, I don't know which one, you can read the episode titles and you'll learn a lot about the Negro Leagues, and learn a lot about baseball players that you actually kind of kick yourself that you never learned about earlier. But that is all we have for you this week. Looking down, that was a pretty packed show. Put a lot of time in, a lot of things to cover. Bryanna, your thoughts as we talked about it earlier. We're officially 2 weeks away from at least camps opening. Now, obviously, 2 months away from the start of the season on April 1st, but we're a little closer than we expected. But your final thoughts, another episode here of the Changeup.
I mean, obviously, we'll keep you all updated on the Mickey Callaway situation. I would love to see him get fired. Suspension is good enough for now, though, until the investigation is over. But again, I'm still holding out hope for Bauer, because Angels really need the pitching help.
Yeah, and anything helps. Obviously, if him and Callaway didn't get along, that would be, I guess, somewhat of a silver lining if they could bring him in to the fold after that. But at the end of the day, it's tough. It is, because you want everyone in the sport of baseball to make the game better, and be inclusive to all. I mean, we just spent 5 minutes talking about someone who was never given his due because of the color of his skin, and there are plenty of females in the game, whether it be in the media side, the internal side, even on the diamond, that were not given their due because of their gender or their sex. I don't know what the proper is, but nomenclature is, but you understand what I'm saying. And that's unfortunate. Like I said, it took until 2020 for Major League Baseball to recognize that the Negro leagues were major leagues. We all knew that, but everything seems to in baseball happen a little bit slower. It's a what's the word? A slow moving machine. It's a big tanker. When it moves, it takes a little while. But for baseball, I'm grateful that hopefully these stories about the Bianca Smiths and her name escapes me, Sarah Goodrum and Jessica Mendoza's and all the others whose names don't, just because I don't know off the top of my head, does not diminish.
If you can get a general manager that's a female like the Marlins, that'd be great.
And you're right. Yes. And see everything that's been going on. That is another one that has, and it's great because I don't want to say I'm glad that I forgot about her, but the fact that there are so many of these coming out almost weekly that eventually we're going to get to a point and it's not an eyebrow raiser. It doesn't turn heads that a female that there is a female referee in the Super Bowl ever. When that doesn't turn heads,
there's females on both sides.
Exactly. And you're right. That was just the one that popped into my head. But when you see those things and it isn't a big deal, that's going to be a great time, because it's going to be truly a game that is pushed to the best, because there are a lot of people that could make this game better. But unfortunately, for people like Mickey Callaway, and people like the former general manager of the Mets, keep those people out of the game. And that's a travesty. So let's just make sure that we do our part in life, but also in baseball, to let everyone in, let everyone play baseball, and let everyone love baseball. So with that is all we have for you. Bryanna, thank you as always for your time today. As always, you can find Bryanna on Twitter at bwinner12. You can find me at First Report, FERST Report. Thank you to everyone who watched on Twitch. We did go live. It was a lot of fun. Still getting some kinks worked out. We'll get that all figured out. But as always, it was a lot of fun to talk baseball. We'll be back next week with some news. I'm sure there will be plenty of news. I'm sure Bryanna will be ready to break the news that Trevor Bauer has signed with the Angels, and she will laugh in my face, but we will see. But with that, thank you all again so much for listening. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. Thanks again for listening to the Off the Bench Podcast Network and another episode of the Changeup. Have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.